everybody, this is Steve Akley here at the ABV Barrel Shop. This is my place in suburban St. Louis. If you ever make it to the St. Louis area, please come by my store. This is a whiskey shop that specializes in single barrel picks, meaning we go to distilleries, we taste their whiskey, we buy the barrel that we like best, they bottle it up and ship it to us, and we're bringing a lot of new things into the market. We have a lot of contacts in the industry. We get a lot of cool things that are different. And of course, we focus on education and we allow you to try here before you buy. So you can taste any of our barrel picks. Very different concept and would encourage you to come by. We've been doing these videos for a while and they focus on different things. Some of them are educational, some where I just tell personal stories. I thought this one would be yet another turn. It would be, let's talk about something like we talk about here at the tasting bar. It's not uncommon for us to have this entire tasting bar filled up with our customers as they go through and taste our new products, the new barrel picks that we got in, and they're trying to decide what they like best. But then like any bar situation, even though we're not a bar, we're just a tasting bar, we can only sample the products we have in. We don't make you mix drinks or serve beer or anything like that. But just like any situation where you get a bunch of people gathered together, conversations pop up. And one that I got to thinking about, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and a player that was always there when I was watching baseball as a young person was Dave Kingman. He never played for my team. He never played for the Cardinals, but he played for 7 teams total. He did have 2 stints with the Mets, so there's 8 different time frames where he's working with different people. So he was kind of all over the league. And one thing that was kind of famous about Dave Kingman was those long home runs. I mean, this guy could jack the ball out of a stadium. I mean, and the stories are incredible. It's worth looking up like on YouTube. He has one that is measured. It's a measured home run where it flew over 530 feet. And it's worth watching on YouTube just to see the long home run. He's playing at Wrigley as a Cub, hits it all the way out, goes across the street, and hits like the 3rd house in. And the funny thing is, if you watch that video, you'll see the guy who's clearly watching on TV. As the ball is in the air, he comes running out of the house to see it careen off his front porch. Just amazing. So this guy, and he hit a home run like 1 out of every 15 at bats. So, you know, he was a guy who was prolific when it came to home runs. The downside was he wasn't really good at anything else in baseball. He struck out a lot, like 1 out of every 3.5 at bats. I'm looking, I got that stat here. 1 out of every 3.5 times he was striking out. He wasn't a great fielder. He had a reputation of being surly. And that's going to kind of lead to what keeps him out of the Hall of Fame. So again, a conversation for the bar here would not be to try to get Dave Kingman in the Hall of Fame with his stats right now. Under no circumstances does he make it. The 442 career home runs, great number. Can make you maybe in the Hall of Good, you know, for baseball, but not the Hall of Fame. You know, when you look at the whole package, there's no way he can make it. And of course, there's discussions like this that go on, and people apply the metrics that they use today, which, you know, he's terrible in those. But, you know, if you just look at, he had the chance to go. And if he just ended his career on his own, you know, accord, who just was like, hey, I'm done. I'm hanging it up. I got 442 home runs. I'm calling it a career. You could say then for sure. He doesn't even have a discussion about going into the Hall of Fame. But there's some other factors that we're going to talk about today that leads to the what ifs. And that's what this video is. It's a bar discussion, because a bar discussion has to involve what ifs. If you just want to look at the facts only, I agree with you. I'm not going to try to make the case that the man deserves to go in. I'm not going to try to what if his way in there either. I'm just going to say, what if this would have happened, though? Could he then be in that discussion? Because at that point, he's not even an automatic, which is so unique. He could get to 500 home runs and not be an automatic inclusion into the Hall of Fame. That's how controversial Dave Kingman is. So we're going to talk about that today. So, you know, a couple things. I want to lay the case here, too, where, you know, maybe just being a jerk is what leads him not to go in the Hall of Fame. And you know what? There's a lot of jerks in the Hall of Fame. But they also always had the stats to back it up, where Dave is going to be, even if we give him the benefit of the what if, which again, that's not going to be factored into him making it or not, because, you know, he's not in there. But even if we say, what if all these things fell into place for him, he still might not make it. And some of that is because he is a jerk. He treated the media bad. He was not known as a good teammate. And there's a couple incidents here that we're going to talk about today that really lead to his demise and leaving professional baseball. So, but let's go back. Let's go back to the good times here. 1986, he ends his career, what would be the end of his career, wasn't planning on ending it, but he ends his career with a 35 home run season. Now, because this was his final season, that ends up being the record for most home runs in a final season. It was eventually passed. David Ortiz does break that record in his final season. But for in the history of baseball, up to that point and up till Ortiz breaks that number, no one had ever hit more home runs in their final season. So he hits 35 home runs, ranks him third in the league that year, the overall league. And he's 37 years old, probably still got gas in the tank. I mean, he was a powerful figure, 6'6", always in shape. Dave Kingman always was in shape. So I would imagine he wasn't injured his final year either. He had some injuries throughout his career, which is pretty normal for a long career like he had, 16 years in the bigs. But he was healthy when he retired. And ultimately, he had a hard time finding a professional job. He did sign a minor league contract with the San Francisco Giants. Played in 20 games the next year, batted a little bit over 200, and hit 2 home runs, and then retired ultimately for good. Didn't come back after that. But let's look at some of these numbers here, with home runs. So again, retires at 37. Let's say he made it 3 more years. He had hit 35 home runs in his third to last year, 30 home runs in his second to last year, and then 35 in his last. So even if he makes it 3 more years at 442 home runs, likely he would have got to 500. And at that point, that's one of those magic numbers. Everyone says that's a magic number. 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, 300 wins if you're a pitcher. There's some magic numbers that state you automatically go into the Hall of Fame. Now, you don't have to, and we've certainly seen things with steroids involved where people have crossed those thresholds and they're not in and may or may not ever make it in. We don't know. We'll see what happens with those folks. But Kingman wasn't involved in the steroid era. He was right at the cusp of it, 86. He was playing on Oakland with people like Jose Canseco. So he was right kind of as this may have been getting started or not, I don't know, but he was never been accused of anything like that. His is all natural. So Dave Kingman, I don't believe he had anything to do with any of that type of stuff. And I haven't ever heard an accusation made of him of utilizing anything like that. He just could hit the ball and hit it a long way. But here's a look at his home runs year by year. Let's see where he placed every single year of his career. In 1986, again, his final season, 3rd overall. In home runs. We're talking about both leagues here, so the American and the National League. In 85, he was tied for 12th. 84, 4th. Again, you have to look at his contemporaries. Even if you're saying, well, 35 home runs, that's not a lot. You have to look at what was going on in that era. That's a lot of home runs. I mean, when you're 3rd and 4th, like he was there, that's telling you that he was one of the leaders in terms of hitting home runs at that time. So there's a lot of things that go into it. What was the ball like? What was the stadiums like? All that kind of stuff. You have to look at how are you doing against your contemporaries to measure them, against how Aaron Judge is doing now or whoever you want to say. It might look like that's not a lot of home runs, but you can't do that. You have to look at against your contemporaries. 83, one of his injured years, only 13 home runs. He wasn't in the top 20. 82, he was 3rd. 81, 3rd, tied for 3rd. 80, 18 home runs, not in the top 20. 1979, he led all of the majors in home runs, 48. He was well on pace, of course, to set the all-time record, to break, at that time, Roger Maris's record, but hand injury leads him to a little bit limited playing time. He still hits 48 home runs, a monster number. That's a monster number even in today's home run era. You hit 48 home runs, you're a ball player for sure. 78, he was 12th in the league, tied for 12th. 77, he hit 26 home runs, very nice number, but that wasn't in the top 20. 76, 2nd. 75, 2nd, tied for 2nd. 74 and 73, he wasn't in the top 20, but hit 18 and 24 home runs. 72, he was number 8, tied for 8. And then 71, his rookie year, played in a limited number of games, 41 games. He hit 6 home runs in his first season. So very, solid career. And those are solid numbers. And again, if you tack on 3 more years, because we're at a bar, we can do the what-if game here. It's about conversation. Again, if you're the type that just wants to shut anything out other than facts, you probably don't even want to watch this video because it's about the what-ifs. So what if he had played 3 more years? But that being said, there was a couple of factors here that leads to Dave getting out of the league. So first of all, he had played at a lot of places. So, that means you play with a lot of different players. The word is out about you. It gets out about, who you are. And then he had, in his last couple of years playing in Oakland, he had an ongoing battle with a female reporter. And there's some terrible stuff said about Dave. And again, I don't know what's true or not. I've never met Dave. I've never talked to him. I do go to some baseball card shows and stuff like that. I've done that stuff in my career. Never been to one where Dave's at, so I've never even met the man. I don't know the reporter, but some of the stuff that is said out there, and you don't have to look very far to find it, that, Dave, one of the things that they said was he had told her he doesn't like women in the locker room. That's why he doesn't like her and stuff like that. That's a terrible thing to say. It would set the start of females getting into the locker room. So, maybe the benefit of the doubt, something's new. I don't know. It's certainly a bad thing that goes on there. Also, there is a beat reporter in Oakland that says that at one time Dave asked him for some dirt on this female reporter because he wanted to have some fun with her, whatever that means. That doesn't sound fun at all, actually. I don't think that should be something you're doing. I don't know that that's ever corroborated, other than that's a stated thing out on the internet. And we always have to take things with a grain of salt when it's out on the internet. One thing that we do know that he did, there's two incidents. One that is pretty bad, and I would say that one is the worst, and it's not even viewed as the worst by everybody else, but it's viewed by the worst as by me. So in 1986, what would serve to be his final year, he had this ongoing dispute. And again, I think it's all one-sided. I think Dave is stirring this up. He doesn't like this reporter, maybe because she's female, maybe because she wrote bad things about him that he didn't like. I don't know the reason there. Again, not privy to any of that. But he doesn't like this reporter. And that wasn't my market, so I don't know the reporter. I've never seen her writing or anything like that. But I'm on her side on this. I mean, it doesn't sound like she did anything wrong. But one of the things Dave did is they were on like a 14-game losing streak. And Dave they're in Kansas City, and Dave goes out and buys a rat. Now, he says he bought the rat just to loosen up the team, to kind of, the club is very tight. They're tired of losing games and stuff like that. You gotta loosen them up and have some fun. And he buys this rat for $2 at like a local feed store. They have rats that they sell at local pet stores and stuff like that you typically feed to snakes, or some people keep rats as pets. I don't understand that, but whatever. So Dave gets this rat. They play with it in the clubhouse. He's letting it run around and stuff like that. Everybody's laughing and yucking it up. He says it's to, oh, hey, how you doing? Sorry. Oh, that's all right. Have a good day. You want to be on the video? Just got the mail delivered here, folks. We are really open. So Dave is, he gets into the situation where he's got the rat then, and he takes it, puts it in a box, hangs like a tag around and says, my name's Susan, which is the name of the reporter. He sends it up to the press box. And this woman gets it. Of course, she's offended, and he gets in trouble for that. He gets fined $3,500, which he was making, $730,000, which is like less than 1%. So, but the caveat there was, if you get in any more trouble, if anything else happens like this is unacceptable. If anything else happens like this, you're cut from the team without pay and you're gone. So the rest of the year, as far as I know, Dave didn't get in any other trouble. So, but ultimately, when the season ends, he's not offered a contract with the A's, nor anyone else. But that's not the worst thing. I think that's pretty bad. But maybe if I'm trying to get into his head, maybe it's a dumb joke, something that you try to do and you think it's funny, and then maybe with the benefit of hindsight, you can even realize it's not funny. Though it doesn't sound like Dave was very contrite. He hung up on his locker letters from people that said, he was in the right to do it. I think he was wearing a jacket from like a local extermination company and stuff like that, having some fun with it. So, it doesn't sound like he was contrite. It sounds like he was pretty happy with the joke that he played. If it was a joke or if it was just being mean, he was fine with it. But the thing that I really got angry about was when he hit his 400th home run. That wasn't, of course, his final year, but when he did, that reporter was there. So Susan was there, and he does this thing where he's like, I'm not answering any questions until she's out of here. I won't answer anybody's questions. Not just her. I'm not just not speaking to her. She has to be physically removed. And she was. That's terrible. I mean, to me, I'd cut him right there. That if I had the team, I'm like, you don't control. The media is here to promote our game, to promote us. I'm sorry if you don't like her, but she can be here. She represents the Sacramento Bee, which is a legitimate paper. She's a legitimate media person. She gets to stay. So if you want to leave, by the way, clean out your locker and just go home. So, but that wasn't done. I don't think he got in any trouble for that. As far as I haven't seen anything about it. So that leads, I mean, obviously the guy who, of course, he dumped ice on a reporter's head one time. Again, I don't know what caused that. I see the listed out there online. I don't know what led up to that. I have no idea why he did that to that reporter. But the guy certainly had the reputation of being a jerk. So he's not able to find a job, and there could be some reasons for this. I think there's some different possibilities here. Number one, maybe his skills had just declined. Maybe people saw it. I don't know. He seems like he's flying pretty high, coming in third in home runs. And he was doing what he's doing. He's still striking out a lot. Batting average is low, all that kind of stuff. That was happening when this was going on. But that being said, he hit 35 home runs, and that's what he was hired for. He was hired as a home run hitter. He delivered on what he had to do. So he does play minor league in '87, but again, short season, 20 games, 203 batting average, 2 home runs or whatever it was. He gets out of the league. So maybe it was just skills erosion. Sometimes skill erosion is going down like this. Sometimes it's falling off a cliff. I don't know if he was the victim of that. Not really sure. The other thing could be he just made too much money. I mean, he made $730,000 a year for a guy who really couldn't field, who was kind of, not known to be a great clubhouse presence. And, he's just hitting those home runs. So maybe he's worth it, maybe he's not. I don't know. But maybe it was just a matter of him making too much. Or the last thing is, was it just because he was a jerk? Was it the fact that Dave Kingman was an unlikable guy, that he was going to cause trouble? He was going to cause maybe trouble with the media, trouble with his teammates, and maybe that leads to him being out. I'm not sure. Of course, we were at a time when there was some owner collusion going on, and I don't know if this plays into that. It doesn't necessarily have to. The fact that he was a high-paid athlete, some say it's that. Some say the fact that he was on track to break the 500 home runs, and they're going to have to put this guy that they didn't like in the Hall of Fame if he gets those 500 home runs. So maybe the owners colluded against him. I do know for a fact, of course, the owners lost 3 collusion trials. And Dave Kingman was one of the people that was paid. He was paid over $800,000 in damages for collusion. So, and it could have been any number of things. But the fact, the idea that he was a jerk might have been one of those things, certainly played into it to some degree, I would guess. But he had an interesting career. So you look at the career here, and I think interesting gets you into the Hall of Fame too. I think that some of the things that because it's the Hall of Fame, it's famous. It is a big factor into that. That's why you can see sometimes it's not necessarily the people with the greatest numbers, but it's the people that stand out the most that we remember. And Dave King Kong Kingman was one of those people that you remembered if you saw him play. I think he's largely forgotten now, but I'm telling you what, I was born in 1968. I watched Dave his whole career, and when he was on, you watched his at-bats. You had him circled when he was going to be in the order, and you made sure that you were watching when Dave Kingman was, because you never know when he's going to just boot one of those out of the whole stadium across the street, get stuck up on the roof. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. So here's a kind of a recap look at his career. So again, 442 home runs, 2-time NL home run leader. One time he led the entire majors, as we talked about. He was a 3-time All-Star. He had a funny stat here in 1982. He led the National League in home runs. He was the NL home run champ. He was beaten in batting average by the Cy Young winner, Steve Carlton. Dave batted .206. Carlton batted .218 that year. That's pretty crazy to think about. In his career, he did hit for the cycle one time. He retired amongst the leaders in Grand Slams. I think he had 16 in his career. Again, played for 7 different teams. Most notably, I think, was an 8-game stint with the Yankees. So the Yankees have got the Boston Red Sox breathing down their neck. Now, you're at a time with 8 games left to go. You're typically at a time when you're just set. You're locked in. You're going to go through, and you're going to, ride out the season, and it is what it is. But, Yankees hate the Red Sox and vice versa, and you got to keep them off. We might lose this thing, but by God, we're not going to lose to the Red Sox. So they go out and get Kingman for the final 8 games of the year. And guess what? Kingman delivers. He comes in, and in those 8 games, he got 6 hits, 4 of them were home runs. So he ends up helping the Yankees cruise to the title. They end up beating the Red Sox by 2.5 games, and they win the World Series. Unfortunately for Dave, coming in that late, you're past the deadline where you can make the postseason roster. So Dave was not on the postseason. My understanding is that he did get a World Series ring for that, for his help down the road. And, that's kind of a cool thing. And, even if you only play 8 games for the Yankees, you're probably a Yankee for life. I'm not a Yankee fan. I live in St. Louis, we're a Cardinal fan. But you got to respect the Yankees, I think. Even if you hate the Yankees, you got to kind of respect them. And he played 8 games, and it was an important cog in that thing. He helped them fend off the Red Sox, which, again, if you're in any way responsible for helping the Yankees beat the Red Sox, you're going to be remembered. It'd be like us with the Cubs. If the Cardinals had the Cubs breathing down their neck, they're going to be like, you know what? We got to get someone else. We got to make this happen here. So that's the role that Dave played. With the bases loaded, Kingman's lifetime average, again, you're talking about a hitter who batted 230-something for his career, often was, hovering around the 200 mark. He batted 270 with the bases loaded, including those 16 grand slams. All right, here's some other fun things about Dave's career. He did win the College World Series, so he was part of USC in 1970 when they won the College World Series. That doesn't play into getting into the MLB Hall of Fame, but it's kind of an interesting note. It's also interesting to note he started out his college career as a pitcher, and he was a pitcher of some note. He was actually pretty good, but kind of like the Babe Ruth thing, minus the other skills Babe had. When you can hit those home runs, you end up working your way into the regular lineup, and that's what converts him to being a hitter, so he got moved into the outfield. In college. So yeah, he pitched a couple times in the majors, just kind of mop-up duty, and was decent. I think he gave up a couple runs each time he did it. But, sometimes when you're losing a game bad, you just want to get through it, and he did some of that relief work. Let's see here. He had a really interesting, this is a record I think it'll stand for all time. There was one year, 1977, when he hit a home run for all 4 divisions. So he ended up jumping around to 4 different teams during the year. This is the year when he was with the Yankees, so we talked about them. So the NL East, the AL East, the NL West, and the AL West, he ended up playing on teams, the Angels, the Padres, the Yankees, and the Mets, played on all 4 of those and hit a home run. So he hit a home run in all divisions in one year. Crazy to think about that, that, first of all, that it would even happen, that you'd end up on 4 teams, and then to hit a home run, pretty cool. There's worth seeing too, when you're talking about fame and funny, one of the all-time great Tommy Lasorda meltdowns, which there were plenty. Tommy Lasorda is worth spending some time on YouTube just watching Tommy videos. And, he has his Kurt Bavacqua meltdown. He also, has gotten some fights with the Philly Fanatic and stuff like that. He famously didn't like, any of the mascots and stuff like that. So, he had plenty of meltdowns. But one that he had was over Dave Kingman. I guess Kingman had hit 3 home runs. And he's talking about the game afterwards. And then some reporter says, "What do you think about the performance of Dave Kingman?" And he just loses it. I mean, F-bombs flying. I mean, just great Tommy Lasorda. Again, you got to love it. You got to love Tommy Lasorda, one of the animated all-time characters of that. So there's a look at Dave Kingman. Again, what happens if he makes it 3 more years and breaks 500 home runs? We got to play the what-if game for this because he didn't do that. But if he did, does he make the Hall of Fame? I think that he does. I do think that that's one of those magical numbers. Again, steroids isn't a factor here, so we know that there's people with more than 500 home runs that aren't in the Hall of Fame. I understand that, but that's not involved in the conversation here. The what if is if he somehow, some way makes it to 500, does he make it anyway? And I think that he does. Maybe begrudgingly. Maybe the reporters are begrudgingly voting for him, but it doesn't happen. For whatever reason, it does not happen. Now, Dave Kingman today, what's the guy like? Well, there's very little out there. I mean, I read in preparation for this, I did a couple things. I read a couple fan web pages where people have interacted with Dave through the years because he does card shows and stuff like that. He is out there. And every single thing that I saw talks about what a nice guy he is. Every single thing. There's never been one like he's a jerk, didn't sign this. Now, you hear stuff going back from when he was his playing days. You'll hear people say, hey, when I was a kid, I went to the stadium, wanted to get his autograph. He gave me the finger and told me to get away and stuff like that. Whatever. I think once his career ended, I think that he's a pretty solid citizen, pretty good guy, it sounds like. I did see one interview with him, never any talk shows or anything like that. After he's left the game, he's largely disappeared from public, media things and stuff like that. But I did see one interview at one of those sports things, and he seemed like a nice guy. He answered the question. He was fun. He was laughing. He just seemed like a very nice guy. So I don't know, maybe he was just into it. I did read a couple of people say that, when he started his career, the fact that he was under tremendous pressure as this athlete, and it ends up, you build barriers and you get to be surly. You don't want to talk to the media. You don't want to be involved in that stuff. And maybe you give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you can say he made some bad decisions. Maybe, he's grown as a person. Maybe, he'd talk about he didn't like what he did with the reporter. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I do know for a fact, he seems to be living his life. He runs like a tennis club or something like that with his family. That's all I know. Sounds like a decent guy at this point. Can he be forgiven for the stuff that he did in the past? Yeah, I think we as a society do have to forgive, and I think it's been long enough. I think that we forgive that and we move on, and he seems to be like a good guy out there now. And does he make the Hall of Fame? Absolutely not. There's no circumstance where he makes the Hall of Fame. But could he have? I say absolutely. I think he had a chance. There, he could have been in the discussion. I can't 100% say he'd be in, but I do know he would have had a chance, and that's all you want, I think, right? You want a chance, but he didn't get that one. There you go. That's it about Dave Kingman. All right, for those of you that hung around to the end, here's a bonus story about Dave Kingman, and I think it's pretty funny, and I don't think there's a scenario where this one could happen today under any circumstances. There's too much media coverage. There's, ESPN would be all over this. This would be one of those things that would be on full blast for weeks, maybe months, but Kingman got away with it. So Kingman's playing for the Cubs. They're gonna, on the day that they're having Dave King Kong Kingman t-shirt day at the ballpark, one of those free giveaways, Kingman shows up in the morning, grabs a cup of coffee, has some therapy because he's dealing with an injury, and then he says, I'm really feeling bad. I'm going to have to go home. The Cubs are playing that day. So he goes home, sick day, right? No. He goes to the Navy Pier, and there's a Kawasaki jet ski dealer there that he works the booth and sells a bunch of Kawasaki jet skis. He was doing a little secondary shift. Pretty cool stuff while his teammates were playing ball. I don't know how you get away with that. That's a classic. That's one for the ages, right? So there you go. There's a bonus Dave King Kong Kingman story.